Shalom, welcome to Eretz Israel. It's Erev Shabbat, Parshat Lech Lecha, and the Zohar has a really amazing take on Avraham Avinu and his love. See, Abraham is considered the chariot of love, that he first opened up his tents to the world and said, come, let's talk about God. Let's get this straight here. Who's in charge? And everybody's got their God, so they want to argue about their gods, which is an absurd notion if you think about it, because we're arguing about something much greater than us that we have no idea, really. But the Zohar tells us that the reason that God chose Abraham was because he loved God more than any other people in his generation, that he loved God more than anybody else. Now, how do you come to that conclusion? Is there a competition for love, that who loves God more, And so it's a kind of statement that it seems like it's improvable unless God comes down and tells everybody this thing. But he didn't come down and tell everybody. He just chose Abraham to be the one that would be the predecessor and the father of the Jewish people. But monotheism wasn't new. Monotheism went back to Adam. Adam talked to God, and God talked to Adam, and Adam knew, and his sons knew, and his grandsons knew, and everybody knew. Throughout the lists of all the generations, these people had prophecy. They knew there was only one God. But 20 generations it took before Abraham said, this is such a great thing, this one God idea, that we should teach it to others. That we should open up our houses and our tents and offer people food and come in from the desert and wash their feet and let them feel good for a little while. And not just feel good because they're getting out of the sun and getting something cold to drink, but because you're getting an idea that we're not here alone on this planet, that we're not just whirling around the sun with no place to go, that we have a mission and a purpose and a direction and meaning to life, and especially meaning to our suffering. But when we have one God who has an agenda, who has a plan for revealing the glory of reality in the midst of all this material warfare, that all of a sudden life has a direction. So Abraham said, we got to open up our tents and open up our houses and bring people in and talk about real things. Talk about important things, not the kind of nonsense that seems to get a lot of hits and got a lot of likes out there. Okay, so Abraham loved God more than everybody else, but why? How do you measure love? Well, the Zohar tells us that Abraham looked at his generation and he saw the people serving idols, and he saw the priests ripping off the people by selling them the idols, his own father. And he saw the priests manipulating the people by saying, you want to have a child, you have to bring more of an offering to the fertility goddess. And you want to have wealth, and you have to bring more of an offering to the god of wealth, and the god of the river, and the god of the sun, and the god of the sky, and the god of the forest. You see how it works? The priests have a monopoly on the ancient mind. They're going to sell you a god. And all you have to do is pay me, the priest, and then we'll make sure it works well. But the priests were not stupid people. They were smart people. They were actually educated from the monotheistic tradition that came from Adam and through Noah and through Noah's son Shet and Shem. Shet was earlier, but Shem was the high priest. But what did they know that other people don't know? They knew natural sciences. If I tell you you need rain, and if you give your offering now, you pay up now, the rain's going to come. But I know because of the meteorological realities of the nature of this planet that it's going to rain in X month. And so, if you know a little science, then you can sell people a lot of God. You got this? This is so important to understand how science has manipulated religion, and then religion comes back and manipulates people. And as opposed to just letting everybody have a one-on-one relationship with the Creator, which is the tikkun of everything. And then science is science, and religion is religion, and everybody has their own relationship. But if I'm a priest and I want to make a dime off of somebody else's needs because he's afraid his wife is not going to make it through childbirth or his fields are going to fail this year, so I got to do something, I'll give my money to the priest. And the priest says, yeah, don't worry, I'm going to take care of it. I have a connection to God. And he has a connection because he knows the weather patterns. Now that's a bit of a simplification, but it's replete throughout the ancient world. And Abraham said, enough. We're going to teach the people the truth. That there is one God and there's one set of laws, and if we live by them, we're going to have a better life. Will it be a life free of suffering? Obviously not. Will it be a perfect life? Well, nobody perfect has yet been born. But is it going to be better than a life of paying off priests for invisible forces that we don't even know how they operate? No, it's going to be better than that. So Abraham saw his generation. Why did Abraham love God so much? Because he saw the generation was falling into the worst types of belief systems and behaviors and selling their children to the Molech and watching them being sacrificed and thinking that, oh, if I sacrifice my child, then I'm going to get wealth or I'm going to get health. Or it's insane. And that insanity is not so far away from the modern mind. Understand that. You don't have to look far. So Abraham said, enough. And he knew that people were doing things that, according to the law, they should be punished. Because there's judgment and then there's love. There's mercy. See, and God created the world with judgment. That you do good, you get good. You do bad, you get bad. But then he saw that most of the people were doing bad and getting punished, and it wasn't a good situation. So he introduced the idea of mercy. And mercy becomes where you go beyond the letter of the law with a person. You give them time. You give them a way to fix, a way to repair, a way to restore their dignity and their truth and their higher self. And so God had patience, and Abraham saw God's patience. And that's why he loved God so much. The secret of Abraham's love is the perception of God's patience for his generation. He knew about the flood. He knew that God had patience. 100 years Noah built that boat, and everybody was wondering, what is this crazy man building? But the people didn't come back until it was too late. So Abraham knew that God had patience, and he loved God for his patience. The patience with human frailty, the patience with human failings, the patience for not being perfect, patience with ourselves, with our families, with our children. And that's where Abraham found love of God. Because if this God has that much patience for the human race, then why can't I? And he loves people even with all their failings and their frailties and their sins and everything else, then why can't I? So when we talk about the love of Abraham, let's understand it's not a storybook love. It's not a child's story. It's a story of a man who recognized pain and suffering in the human race, and he saw a God that was long-suffering and patient and waiting and waiting and waiting to give people a chance. And when you see that in your own life, when you see that you do things wrong and God is still giving you a chance, another chance to come back every day, every month, every year, on Yom Kippur, it's a blank check. And you see that there's a God like that, you say, wow, this is actually a great God to serve. This is the kind of deity that I want to serve, that's patient and loving and merciful. In spite of human behavior, in spite of all the priests and the false ones, the leaders that are basically extorting the people and taking advantage of their innocence and their ignorance, their metaphysical ignorance. So Abraham said, we got to stop this. We got to put up a teaching center on the crossroads of the ancient world and start telling people the truth. And of course, Nimrod didn't like that, because Nimrod was the king and the hunter of souls, and he ran the show in the ancient day. And there are those kind of people still around today, the big kings that sit on all the big banks, etc., etc. But you know what? The truth is that every person has the opportunity for a one-on-one relationship with Hashem, and that's our salvation individually, and that will be our salvation as a collective. Because there is nothing else to lean on Avinu Shebashamayim, right? Our Father in heaven, He's looking down. He knows exactly what's going on. He knows how to run viruses, and He knows how to run vaccines, and He knows how to bring people back to a true belief and a belief that is not compromised. It's not compromised by our fallen fear. Because we all have fear of health and fear of wealth and fear of all kinds of fears. But when we find out that when we have awe of God, all the fallen fears fall away. We have true awe of the one who's running this show, then I don't have to worry about all these little priests running around trying to make a buck on somebody else's faith. So God bless you all to have that love, to see that patience of God in your life, and to have that patience for others, and to spread that love and patience to the world around you, and you will see that the world will change. And that's our hope, and that's our direction. That's the love of Abraham. God bless you all. We'll see you next week on all the platforms. Shabbat Shalom.